The frozen river beneath Violet Lancaster's boots cracked like a gunshot, and she knew she was going to die. She had been running for 20 minutes through the bitter December cold of 1884, her lungs burning with each gasp of frigid air, her ex-husband Marcus somewhere behind her in the darkness. The frozen expanse of the Tuolumne River outside Jamestown, California, had seemed like the fastest escape route when she fled into the night, but now the ice was betraying her with each desperate step. The sound of splintering grew louder, a terrible groaning that rose from the depths below, and Violet felt the world tilt as the surface gave way completely. Cold swallowed her whole. It was not like anything she had ever experienced, a shocking violence that drove the air from her lungs and seized every muscle in her body. The black water of the river pulled her down, her heavy wool skirts becoming anchors that dragged her deeper into the current. She tried to scream, but only managed to swallow more of the icy water, her arms flailing uselessly as the current spun her beneath the ice. Above her, she could see the dim moonlight filtering through the frozen surface, so close yet impossibly far away. Her fingers scraped against the underside of the ice, finding no purchase, no way back to air and life. Then, something crashed through the ice beside her, and strong arms wrapped around her waist. She was being pulled upward with fierce determination, back toward that distant light. Her vision was dimming, black spots dancing across her eyes, but she felt herself breaking through the surface. Air hit her face and she gasped, coughing up river water as those same strong arms hauled her onto more solid ice. "Don't you dare die on me," a rough male voice commanded near her ear. "Stay awake. We have to get off this river." Violet could not respond. Her teeth were chattering so violently she thought they might shatter, and her limbs felt like lead. But the man who had pulled her from certain death was not giving her a choice. He lifted her into his arms as though she weighed nothing and began moving across the ice with careful, measured steps. She caught a glimpse of his face in the moonlight, angular and weathered, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and eyes that burned with intensity. They reached the riverbank and he kept moving, carrying her up the slope and away from the water. She could hear Marcus shouting somewhere in the distance, his voice slurred with whiskey and rage. Her rescuer heard it too, because his pace quickened as he made his way through the pine trees that lined the river. "My horse is just ahead," he said, his voice steady despite the fact that he must be as frozen as she was. "Can you hold on for another minute?" Violet tried to nod but was not sure if she succeeded. Everything was becoming hazy, the cold seeping so deep into her bones that she was starting to feel warm, which some distant part of her mind recognized as dangerous. She felt herself being lifted onto a horse, then the man swung up behind her, wrapping his soaking wet coat around them both. His arm held her firmly against his chest as he urged the horse into a gallop. The ride was a blur of pain and cold. Violet drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the steady heartbeat against her back and the feeling of being held safe. When she next opened her eyes with any clarity, they were stopped in front of a small cabin, smoke rising from its chimney. The man dismounted and pulled her down carefully, then kicked open the door and carried her inside. The warmth of the cabin hit her like a physical blow, and she cried out, the feeling returning to her frozen limbs, bringing with it excruciating pain. He laid her on a bed near the fireplace and immediately began stripping away her wet clothing with efficient, impersonal movements. "I know this is not proper," he said as he worked, "but you will die of cold if we do not get you warm and dry." Violet understood the truth of his words, even through her confusion and pain. She tried to help, but her fingers would not cooperate. He wrapped her in thick wool blankets and then moved away, and she heard him stoking the fire, adding more wood until the heat in the cabin became intense. He returned with tin cups of hot liquid. "Drink this," he ordered, supporting her head. "It is just hot water with a little whiskey. It will help warm you from the inside." She drank, the liquid scalding her throat but bringing blessed warmth. Only then did she realize he was still in his own soaking wet clothes, his whole body shaking with cold. "You need to get dry, too," she managed to say through chattering teeth. He looked surprised that she could speak, then nodded. "I will change in the other room. Keep drinking. There's more in the pot by the fire." He disappeared through a doorway and returned a few minutes later in dry clothes, his dark hair still damp but no longer dripping. He poured himself some of the whiskey-laced water and drank it down, then checked the fire again before pulling a chair close to her bedside. "I am Nathan Irwin," he said. "I have a ranch about 5 miles east of here. I was heading home from town when I saw you run onto the ice, saw that man chasing you. When you fell through, I did not think. I just went in after you." "Thank you," Violet whispered. "I am Violet Lancaster. You saved my life. That man who was chasing you, he is still out there. He your husband?" "Ex-husband. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago, but Marcus will not accept it. He keeps finding me, no matter where I go." Her voice broke. "I thought coming to Jamestown would be far enough. I have been working as a seamstress, keeping to myself. But he found me anyway. He was drinking at the saloon tonight and saw me through the shop window as I was closing up. I ran." Nathan's jaw tightened. "And he chased you onto a frozen river in December. He has always been like this when he drinks. Mean. Possessive. That is why I finally left him in Sacramento. Why I got the divorce. But he will not let me go." Tears slid down her cheeks and she wiped them away angrily. "I am sorry. You did not sign up for my problems when you pulled me out of that river." "You have nothing to apologize for," Nathan said firmly. "A man who would chase a woman onto dangerous ice because she does not want him is no man at all. You are safe here tonight. This cabin belongs to my foreman, but he is in San Francisco visiting family for the month. No one knows you are here except me." Violet closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. The warmth was finally reaching her core, and with it came a bone-deep weariness. "I should leave. I do not want to bring trouble to your door." "You're not going anywhere tonight," Nathan said. "You nearly died. Your body needs rest and warmth. We will figure out the rest in the morning." She wanted to argue, but her eyes were already drifting closed. The last thing she was aware of was Nathan adding another blanket over her and the sound of him settling into the chair as though he planned to keep watch through the night. When Violet woke, pale winter sunlight was streaming through the cabin's windows, and she was alone. For a moment she panicked, thinking perhaps Marcus had found her, but then she heard movement outside, and moments later Nathan pushed through the door, his arms full of firewood. "You're awake," he said, depositing the wood by the hearth. "How do you feel?" Violet took stock. Her body ached in 1,000 places and her throat was raw, but she was alive and warm. "Better than I have any right to feel." "Good. I brought food from the main house." He produced a basket covered with a cloth. "My cook sent enough to feed an army. I told her I had a friend staying at the foreman's cabin, and she took that as a personal challenge." The smell of fresh bread and bacon made Violet's stomach growl. She realized she had not eaten since breakfast the previous day. Nathan handed her a plate loaded with food, and she ate ravenously while he did the same. "I rode into town early this morning," Nathan said between bites. "Asked around about your ex-husband. The marshal said a man matching that description came into his office around midnight, claiming his wife had run off. The marshal told him that if you were divorced, you were not his wife, and there was nothing he could do. Your ex rode out shortly after, heading west toward Sonora." Relief flooded through Violet. "So he is gone." "For now. But men like that often come back." Nathan set down his plate and leaned forward, his eyes serious. "Miss Lancaster, I have a proposition for you. I need help at the ranch. My housekeeper quit last month to move back east with her daughter, and I've been managing on my own, poorly. The house is a mess. I'm eating half-cooked meals, and the accounts are in chaos. I could use someone with your skills. The pay would be fair, and you would have your own room in the main house. It would give you a place to stay while you figure out your next steps. And if your ex comes looking again, there are always ranch hands around. You would not be alone." Violet stared at him. "You are offering me a job? You do not even know me." "I know you are running from a dangerous situation. I know you are a hard worker, or you would not have been closing up a seamstress shop after dark. And I know you are brave enough to survive what happened last night." He met her eyes steadily. "I am not expecting anything improper, Miss Lancaster. This would be a legitimate employment arrangement. You would work, I would pay you, and you would have safety. That is all." It was too good to be true, which made Violet suspicious. In her experience, men did not offer help without expecting something in return. But Nathan's expression was open and honest, and she remembered the impersonal efficiency with which he had undressed her last night, focused only on saving her life. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Nathan was silent for a long moment. 5 years ago, my sister left her husband after he beat her one time too many. She came to me for help, but I was young and stupid. I told her she had made her vows and she needed to try harder to be a good wife. I sent her back to him. His voice went rough. He killed her 3 weeks later, beat her to death in a drunken rage, and then shot himself. So when I saw you running last night, saw that man chasing you, I was not about to let history repeat itself if I could help it. Violet's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. So am I. He stood, moving to stare out the window. I cannot change what happened to Sarah, but I can help you, if you will let me. There was something in his voice, a raw pain that matched her own, that made Violet's decision for her. All right, I accept your offer, but I insist on earning my keep. I am a hard worker, and I will prove it to you. Nathan turned, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw him smile. It transformed his whole face, softening the hard edges and revealing the good man beneath. I have no doubt of that, Miss Lancaster. Welcome to the Irwin Ranch. They spent the rest of that day at the cabin while Violet recovered her strength. Nathan proved to be easy company, with a dry sense of humor that surprised her and a respectful distance that put her at ease. He told her about his ranch, how he had started with nothing 10 years ago at the age of 21, and built it into one of the most successful cattle operations in the region. She told him about her life before Marcus, about growing up in San Francisco as the daughter of a tailor, learning the trade at her father's knee until he died when she was 18, and she was forced to find work where she could. I thought Marcus was my salvation when I met him, she admitted as they sat by the fire that evening. He was charming and attentive and promised me the world. We married within 3 months. It was only after the wedding that I saw who he really was. The drinking, the rages, the way he controlled every aspect of my life. It took me 5 years to find the courage to leave. That took tremendous strength, Nathan said quietly. Many women never manage it. I thought of your sister, Violet said. I did not want to end up like that. I wanted to live. And now you will. His eyes met hers across the firelight. I promise you, Miss Lancaster. You are safe now. The next morning, Nathan brought her into town to collect her belongings from the boarding house where she'd been staying. The landlady looked at them suspiciously when Violet announced she was leaving, but handed over the small trunk that contained all of Violet's worldly possessions without argument. Nathan loaded it onto his wagon, and they set off for the ranch. The Irwin Ranch was sprawling and beautiful, situated in a valley with the Sierra Nevada mountains rising in the distance. The main house was a 2-story structure built of sturdy timber, with a wide porch and glass windows that spoke of prosperity. Around it were various outbuildings, barns, bunkhouses, a smokehouse, and stables. Cattle dotted the winter-brown pastures, and Violet could see several men working with horses in a distant corral. Nathan helped her down from the wagon and carried her trunk inside. The interior of the house was spacious, but, as he had warned, clearly lacking a woman's touch. Dirty dishes were piled in the kitchen, dust covered most surfaces, and papers were scattered across a large desk in what appeared to be an office. I was not exaggerating about the mess, Nathan said ruefully. Your room is upstairs, second door on the right. Take today to settle in. We can discuss your duties tomorrow. Violet spent the afternoon exploring her new home and beginning to put it in order. Her room was larger than any she had ever had, with a real bed, a wardrobe, and even a small writing desk beneath the window. From that window, she could see the entire valley spreading out before her, beautiful and wild and free. For the first time in years, she felt something that might have been hope. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Violet woke early and prepared breakfast for Nathan and the ranch foreman, a grizzled man in his 50s named Tom Sawyer, who had returned from San Francisco after a week. She spent her mornings cleaning and organizing the house, her afternoons tackling the account books and correspondence, and her evenings preparing dinner. It was hard work, but satisfying, and Nathan proved to be an ideal employer, respectful, appreciative, and never demanding more than was reasonable. But more than that, Violet found herself drawn to him in ways that both excited and frightened her. He was nothing like Marcus. Where her ex-husband had been volatile and controlling, Nathan was steady and kind. He asked her opinions on ranch matters, listened when she spoke, and never raised his voice. He worked alongside his men, rising before dawn, and often not stopping until after sunset. And there was something about the way he moved, the quiet confidence in his bearing, that made her heart beat faster whenever he entered a room. 2 weeks after she arrived at the ranch, Violet was working in the kitchen when she heard horses approaching at speed. She looked out the window to see 4 men dismounting, and her blood ran cold when she recognized the one in front. Marcus. She dropped the dish she was holding, and it shattered on the floor. Nathan, who had been working in his office, appeared in the doorway immediately. "What is wrong?" "He is here," she managed to say. "Marcus is here." Nathan's expression hardened. "Stay inside." He strode out onto the porch, and Violet watched from the window, her heart hammering. Marcus looked worse than when she had last seen him, his face bloated from drink and his clothes rumpled. The 3 men with him looked like the sort who could be hired for violence if the price was right. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Nathan's voice was calm but carried clearly across the yard. "I am looking for my wife," Marcus said, swaying slightly. "I heard she is working for you." "I have an employee named Miss Lancaster, if that is who you mean. But she is not your wife. She is your ex-wife, and she is under my protection." Marcus sneered. "Your protection? What kind of protection are we talking about here? You betting her, cowboy?" Violet saw Nathan's hands flex, but his voice remained level. "You are drunk and you are trespassing. I will give you one chance to leave peacefully." "I am not going anywhere without Violet." Marcus took a step forward. "She is mine, and I am taking her home. The lady does not want to go with you, and in case you have not noticed, you are outnumbered." Violet realized that ranch hands had appeared from various buildings, all of them armed and all of them watching Marcus and his companions with hard eyes. Tom Sawyer stood on the porch steps, a rifle held casually in his arms. Marcus looked around and seemed to recognize that he was outmatched, his face flushed with impotent rage. "This is not over. Violet is my wife and no piece of paper says different. I will be back for her. If you set foot on my property again, I will have you arrested for trespassing," Nathan said, "and if you threaten Miss Lancaster again, I will deal with you myself. Do I make myself clear?" For a moment, Violet thought Marcus would do something stupid, but then one of his companions grabbed his arm and muttered something in his ear. Marcus spat on the ground, cast one last venomous look at the house, and mounted his horse. The 4 men rode off at a gallop, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Nathan waited until they were out of sight before turning and coming back into the house. He found Violet in the kitchen, her whole body shaking. "He is gone," Nathan said gently, "and he will not be back." "You do not know Marcus," Violet whispered. "He will not give up. He never gives up." Nathan knelt in front of her, his eyes level with hers. "Then he will find out what happens when he goes up against someone who will not back down either. You are not alone anymore, Violet. I meant what I said. You are under my protection." She looked into his eyes and saw the absolute conviction there. Slowly, her shaking subsided. Nathan helped her to her feet and guided her to a chair, then poured her a cup of coffee from the pot on the stove. "Tom is going to ride into town and speak to the marshal," Nathan said. "We will make sure there's a formal complaint on record, and I'm going to have a couple of the men keep watch at night for the next while, just to be safe." "I should leave," Violet said. "I am putting you and your men in danger." "No." Nathan's voice was firm. "You are staying right here. Marcus is a bully and a coward. He came here with hired guns because he knew he could not face me alone. Men like that crumble when they meet real resistance." Over the next few days, Nathan was proven right. There was no sign of Marcus or his companions. Tom reported that the marshal had issued a warning to Marcus and told him to leave the county. Violet began to relax, though she remained vigilant, always looking over her shoulder. As January gave way to February, the dynamic between Violet and Nathan began to shift. They spent long evenings together after dinner, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about his dreams for the ranch, his plans to expand into horse breeding. She shared her love of books and music, things she had been forced to give up during her marriage because Marcus considered them frivolous. Nathan surprised her one evening by presenting her with a book of poetry he had ordered from San Francisco. "I remember you mentioned you used to love reading Whitman," he said, looking almost bashful. "I thought you might enjoy having your own copy." Violet held the book like it was made of gold. "Nathan, this is too much." "It is just a book," he said, but his eyes were warm. "You have brought order and peace to my home. It is the least I can do." But it was not just a book, and they both knew it. It was a gesture that showed he listened to her, that he cared about what made her happy. Violet found herself falling asleep with the book on her chest and waking up thinking about Nathan's smile. One evening in late February, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Nathan reached over and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Violet's ear. The gesture was so tender, so intimate, that Violet's breath caught. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said quietly. "And I understand if it is too soon, if I am overstepping, but I cannot keep quiet anymore." Violet's heart was pounding. "What is it?" "I have feelings for you, Violet. Deep feelings. It started the night I pulled you from the river, and it has only grown stronger every day since. You are brave and kind and strong, and I find myself looking for excuses to be near you. I think about you constantly, and I know your divorce is recent, and you have been through hell, but I had to tell you. I had to be honest about what I feel." Violet could barely breathe. "Nathan, I feel the same way. I have for weeks now, but I'm afraid." "Of what?" His hand found hers, warm and steady. "Of making another mistake, of trusting the wrong person again, of losing myself in someone else." The words spilled out of her. "Marcus made me doubt everything about myself. What if I am wrong about you too? What if this feeling is just gratitude or dependence?" Nathan squeezed her hand. "Those are fair fears. And I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to give us a chance. Let me court you properly. Let us see where this goes without pressure or expectations. And if you decide it is not what you want, I will respect that. You will always have a place here, regardless." Violet looked into his eyes, those steady, honest eyes that had never shown her anything but respect and kindness, and she made a choice to be brave again. "I would like that," she whispered. "I would like to see where this goes." Nathan's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "Then we will take it slow, one day at a time." The courtship that followed was unlike anything Violet had experienced. Nathan was patient and attentive, always checking in with her feelings, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He took her on picnics in the valley, taught her to ride his gentlest mare, and sat with her on the porch in the evenings reading poetry aloud. He introduced her to his friends in town, always making it clear that she was important to him. And slowly, day by day, Violet felt her walls coming down. One April afternoon, they rode out to a meadow bursting with wildflowers. Nathan spread a blanket under an old oak tree, and they lay side by side, watching clouds drift across the brilliant blue sky. "I never thought I could feel this way again," Violet said softly. "Safe, happy, free." Nathan rolled onto his side, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at her. "You deserve all of that and more." "I love you," Violet heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them, but once they were spoken, she realized she meant them with every fiber of her being. "I love you, Nathan Irwin." His eyes widened, then filled with such joy that Violet felt tears spring to her own eyes. "I love you too, Violet Lancaster. I have loved you since the moment you opened your eyes in that cabin and tried to make sure I was taking care of myself, even though you had nearly died. I will love you until my last breath." He leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Violet wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into that moment. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless and smiling. "Marry me," Nathan said suddenly. "I know it is fast and I know you have reasons to be cautious, but I also know that life is short and uncertain, and I do not want to waste a single day that we could spend together as husband and wife. Marry me, Violet. Not because you need protection or security, but because we love each other and we want to build a life together." Violet's heart soared. This was nothing like Marcus's proposal, which had been rushed and pressuring. This was a man who knew her scars and loved her anyway, who had proven himself over and over again. This was a man she could trust with her heart. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married in Jamestown on a bright May morning, with Tom Sawyer standing as Nathan's best man and the town seamstress, a kind widow named Agnes who had become Violet's friend, serving as her witness. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed her with such tenderness that several people in attendance wiped away tears. The reception was held at the ranch, with all the ranch hands and their families invited. There was music and dancing and more food than they could possibly eat. Violet wore a dress of cream-colored silk that she had made herself, with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Nathan could not stop staring at her, and every time their eyes met across the celebration, Violet felt a rush of joy so intense it was almost painful. As the sun began to set and the guests started to drift away, Nathan led Violet up to the room that was now theirs. He had surprised her by having it completely redecorated while she was in town preparing for the wedding. There were new curtains in soft blue, a beautiful quilt on the bed, and fresh flowers on every surface. "Do you like it?" he asked nervously. "It is perfect," Violet said. "Everything about this day has been perfect." Nathan pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "I want you to know something. I will never take you for granted. I will spend every day of my life proving that you made the right choice in marrying me. And if you ever feel afraid or uncertain, I want you to tell me. We will face everything together." "I know," Violet said. "I trust you, Nathan, completely." That night, as they lay together in the darkness, Violet thought about how far she had come. A year ago, she had been trapped in a nightmare marriage with no hope of escape. 6 months ago, she had been running for her life across a frozen river. And now she was here, in the arms of a man who loved her, building a future full of possibility. The scars of her past would always be part of her, but they no longer defined her. She was free. She was loved. She was home. The months that followed were the happiest of Violet's life. She and Nathan worked side by side to build their ranch into something extraordinary. Violet proved to have a head for business, streamlining operations and negotiating better prices for their cattle. Nathan deferred to her judgment more often than not, proud of her intelligence and capability. They were partners in every sense of the word. In August, Violet discovered she was pregnant. She had been feeling tired and queasy for weeks, and Agnes had suggested she might want to see the doctor. When Dr. Matthews confirmed her suspicion, Violet felt a complicated rush of emotions. She was thrilled at the thought of having Nathan's child, but she was also terrified. Her marriage to Marcus had been so unhappy that they had never had children, which in retrospect felt like a blessing. But what if she was a terrible mother? What if she passed on her fears and scars to this innocent child? Nathan found her crying in their room that evening and gathered her into his arms. "What is wrong? Is it the baby? Are you all right?" "I'm fine. The baby is fine. I'm just scared." She looked up at him through her tears. "What if I cannot do this? What if I'm not a good mother?" "Oh, Violet." Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "You are going to be an amazing mother. You are strong and kind and patient. This child is so lucky to have you." "What if I'm like my mother was?" Violet whispered. She had told Nathan about her childhood, about a mother who was cold and distant and critical. "What if I do not know how to love properly?" "Look at me," Nathan said firmly. "You already know how to love. You show me every single day, and you will show our child too. I have no doubt about that." His confidence helped calm her fears. Over the following months, as her belly grew, Violet found herself growing excited about the baby. Nathan was attentive and doting, always making sure she was comfortable and rested. He read books about childbirth and child-rearing, often sharing amusing tidbits with her over dinner. The ranch hands treated her like precious china, rushing to help with any task that seemed too strenuous. One December evening, almost exactly a year after she had fallen through the ice, Violet stood on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains. Nathan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her and resting his hands on her swollen belly. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how much can change in a year," Violet said. "Last December I thought my life was over. I was running from Marcus, terrified and alone, and then you saved me. Not just from drowning, but from everything." "You saved yourself," Nathan said. You had the courage to leave, to keep going, even when things were darkest. I just helped a little along the way." "You did more than help a little." Violet turned in his arms to face him. "You gave me back my life. You showed me what real love looks like, and now we are going to have a family together. I never thought I could have this, Nathan. I never thought I could be this happy." He kissed her softly. "You deserve every bit of it. And there's so much more happiness ahead of us, I promise." Their son was born on a cold February morning in 1886. The labor was long and difficult, but when Dr. Matthews finally placed the squalling infant in Violet's arms, every moment of pain was forgotten. Nathan stood beside the bed with tears streaming down his face, staring at his son with such wonder that Violet felt her heart might burst. "He is perfect," Nathan breathed. "You are perfect. Thank you, Violet. Thank you for this gift." They named him James, after Nathan's father, and he was indeed perfect, healthy and strong with a powerful set of lungs in his father's dark hair. Nathan was a natural father, patient and gentle and completely besotted with his son. Violet would often find him holding James in the middle of the night, just watching him sleep with an expression of awe on his face. As spring arrived and Violet recovered her strength, she found motherhood came more naturally than she had feared. Yes, there were difficult moments and sleepless nights, but there was also overwhelming love and joy. Watching Nathan with James, seeing the bond between father and son grow stronger each day, healed something deep inside Violet that she had not even realized was broken. One afternoon in April, Tom Sawyer rode up to the house looking troubled. Violet was on the porch with James, enjoying the warm sunshine, while Nathan was in the barn working on a new saddle. "Miss Violet," Tom said, tipping his hat, "is Nathan around?" "In the barn. What is wrong?" Tom hesitated. "Maybe you should come too. This concerns you." Violet's stomach tightened with unease, but she followed Tom to the barn, James cradled in her arms. Nathan looked up from his work when they entered, immediately sensing something was amiss. "What is it?" "I was in town this morning," Tom said. "Ran into Marshall Davis. He wanted me to pass on a message. Marcus Lancaster is dead." The words hung in the air. Violet felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "What?" "He was in a saloon fight in Sonora 2 nights ago, pulled a gun on the wrong man and got himself shot. Died before the doctor could get there." Tom looked at Violet with sympathy. "I know you were not on good terms, but I figured you should know." Violet sank down onto a hay bale, her mind reeling. Marcus was dead. The man who had terrorized her, who had chased her across a frozen river, who had haunted her nightmares for years, was gone. She waited for some feeling to arise, grief or relief or something, but all she felt was a strange numbness. Nathan knelt in front of her, his hand on her knee. "Are you all right?" "I do not know what I feel," Violet admitted. "He was my husband for 5 years. I should feel something, should not I? But all I feel is empty." "There is no right way to feel about this," Nathan said gently. "He hurt you deeply. It is all right if you are not sad that he is gone." Over the next few days, as the news settled in, Violet realized what she was feeling was closure. For so long, Marcus had been a shadow hanging over her life, a constant threat that could appear at any moment. Even after she married Nathan and built a new life, part of her had always been waiting for Marcus to show up again, to try to drag her back. Now that possibility was gone forever. She was truly free. "I feel like I can finally breathe all the way," she told Nathan one night as they lay in bed. "Like there was a weight on my chest that I did not even fully realize was there. And now it is gone." Nathan pulled her closer. "Good. You deserve to live without fear. You have always deserved that." The years that followed were full and rich. James grew into a bright, curious boy with his father's steadiness and his mother's quick mind. When he was 3, Violet gave birth to twin girls, Emma and Sarah, the latter named for Nathan's sister. The twins were bundles of energy who kept the entire household on their toes. 2 years later came another son, Daniel, who was quieter and more contemplative than his siblings. The ranch continued to thrive under Nathan and Violet's joint leadership. They expanded into horse breeding as Nathan had always wanted, and their horses became known throughout California for their quality. Violet managed the business side while Nathan handled the day-to-day operations, and their complementary skills made them a formidable team. They built additions onto the house as their family grew, and Violet made it into a true home, warm and welcoming, always full of laughter and love. She made sure her children knew they were cherished, that their feelings mattered, that they were safe to be themselves. She and Nathan raised them with a combination of firm boundaries and deep affection, and the children flourished. One evening when James was 10 and the twins were 7, the family gathered around the dinner table, and James asked the question Violet had been dreading for years. "Mama, why do I have a different last name than you and Papa?" Violet and Nathan exchanged glances. They had always known this conversation would come, but that did not make it easier. "Because Lancaster was my name from before I married your father," Violet said carefully. "It was the name of my first husband." "You were married before?" James looked shocked. "I was. His name was Marcus Lancaster, and I was married to him for 5 years. But he was not a kind man, James. He drank too much and he had a terrible temper. So I left him and divorced him, and then I met your father." "Did he hurt you?" Emma asked, her eyes wide. "Sometimes, yes," Violet said honestly. She and Nathan had agreed to always be truthful with their children, within reason. "That is why I left, and why your father is such a blessing. He showed me what a good marriage looks like, what real love is." "What happened to your first husband?" Sarah asked. "He died a long time ago before you were born." "Good," James said fiercely. "I am glad he is dead if he hurt you." "James," Nathan said gently, "I understand why you feel that way, but we do not celebrate anyone's death in this house. What matters is that your mother is safe now, and she has been for a long time. And she chose to keep the Lancaster name because it is the name she had when she started her new life. It is part of her story." Violet reached across the table to squeeze Nathan's hand, grateful for his understanding. The children seemed to accept this explanation, and the conversation moved on to other topics. But later that night, James came to find Violet as she was putting the younger children to bed. "Mama, I'm sorry if I said the wrong thing at dinner." Violet pulled him into a hug. "You did not say anything wrong, sweetheart. Your feelings made perfect sense." "I just hate that anyone hurt you," James said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "You are the best mama in the world." Tears stung Violet's eyes. "Thank you, my darling boy. But I am all right now. Better than all right. I have you and your sisters and Daniel, and I have your father. I am the luckiest woman alive." When James was 12, he started working on the ranch in earnest, learning everything he could from Nathan. The twins showed an interest in the business side of things, always asking Violet questions about the account books and contracts. Daniel loved the horses and spent hours in the stables, gentle and patient with even the most skittish animals. Violet watched her children grow with pride and wonder. They were nothing like she had been at their ages, anxious and trying to please a critical mother. They were confident and happy, secure in the knowledge that they were loved. That security was the greatest gift she and Nathan could give them. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan surprised Violet with a trip to San Francisco, just the two of them. It was the first time they had been away from the children for more than a day, and while Violet missed them terribly, she also savored the time alone with her husband. They stayed in a beautiful hotel, ate at fine restaurants, and walked along the waterfront holding hands like young sweethearts. One evening, as they stood watching the sunset over the bay, Nathan pulled Violet into his arms. "Have I told you lately that you are the most amazing woman I have ever known?" Violet laughed. "You tell me every day." "Well, it is true. 10 years ago, I pulled a half-drowned woman from a river and had no idea she would change my entire life. You made me a better man, Violet. You gave me a family and a home and a purpose beyond just building a ranch. Everything good in my life comes from you." "That is not true," Violet protested. "You were already a good man, a wonderful man. That is why I fell in love with you." "We made each other better," Nathan said. "Is that a fair compromise?" "That is fair." Violet leaned up to kiss him. "I love you so much, Nathan Irwin, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too, always and forever." They returned to the ranch refreshed and reconnected, ready to dive back into the beautiful chaos of their life. The children had been well cared for by Agnes, who had become like a grandmother to them, but they were ecstatic to have their parents home. The house rang with their excited chatter as they all tried to talk at once, showing off things they had done while Nathan and Violet were gone. That night, after the children were finally in bed, Violet and Nathan sat on the porch together, watching the stars come out. The night was warm and peaceful, filled with the sounds of crickets and the distant lowing of cattle. "Do you ever think about that night on the river?" Violet asked quietly. "About how different things would be if you had not been there?" "Sometimes," Nathan admitted, "but I do not like to dwell on it. What matters is that I was there, and everything that came after was meant to be." "I used to wonder why I had to go through so much pain with Marcus," Violet said, "why I had to suffer for so many years before finding happiness. But I think I understand now. Not that I deserved it or that it was necessary, but it taught me to recognize true love when I found it. It taught me to appreciate everything I have now, and it made me determined to raise our children in a home full of love and safety." "You are wiser than I am," Nathan said. "I still wish I could go back and prevent you from ever experiencing that pain. But then I might not be who I am now, and I like who I am." Violet smiled. "I'm strong and capable and resilient. I'm a good mother and a good businesswoman and a good wife. I earned all of that through everything I survived." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "You are remarkable." As the years continued to pass, the Irwin family became pillars of the Jamestown community. Nathan served on the town council, Violet organized charity events to help families in need, and their children attended the local school and were known for their kindness and good manners. The ranch continued to prosper, allowing them to weather the various economic ups and downs that came with the changing times. When James turned 18, he announced that he wanted to go to college in San Francisco to study business and finance. Violet and Nathan were simultaneously proud and heartbroken, and their first child, leaving home. But they supported his dreams and helped him prepare for this new adventure. The night before James left, the whole family gathered for a special dinner. Violet had prepared all of his favorite dishes, and there was much laughter and storytelling around the table. But later, as Violet helped James pack the last of his things, she found herself fighting tears. "I'm going to miss you so much," she said. "I will miss you too, Mama, but I will come home for holidays and summers, and you can visit me in the city." James hugged her tightly. "Thank you for everything you have taught me, about hard work and honesty and treating people with respect. I will make you proud." "You already make me proud every single day," Violet assured him. After James left, the house felt emptier, but life went on. The twins were 15 now and more interested in boys and fashion than ranch work, though they still helped Violet with the business accounts. Daniel, at 13, was talking about becoming a veterinarian, fascinated by animal health and welfare. One October afternoon, Violet was working in her office when Nathan appeared in the doorway looking strange. "What is wrong?" she asked immediately. "Nothing is wrong, but there is someone here to see you. She says her name is Catherine Barlow, and she is in trouble. She heard you sometimes help women in difficult situations." Violet's reputation for quietly assisting women fleeing bad marriages or abusive situations had spread over the years. She never advertised it, but word got around, and every few months someone would show up at the ranch looking for help. "Send her in," Violet said. The woman who entered was young, maybe 22 or 23, with a black eye and a split lip. She was thin and trembling, clutching a small bag that appeared to contain all her possessions. "Miss Catherine," Violet said gently, gesturing to a chair, "please sit down. You are safe here." Over the next hour, Catherine told her story. It was painfully familiar. A charming courtship that turned into a nightmare marriage, a husband who drank and raged and hit. She had finally found the courage to leave 2 days ago and had been sleeping rough, terrified her husband would find her. "I heard in town that you help women like me," Catherine said, tears streaming down her face. "I did not know where else to go." "You came to the right place," Violet assured her. "We have a small cottage on the far side of the property that you can stay in while you figure out your next steps. You will be safe there. My husband and our ranch hands will make sure of that. And if you need work, we can always use help around here." Catherine looked at her with desperate hope. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because I was you once," Violet said simply, "and someone helped me when I needed it most. Now I get to pay that forward." Over the following weeks, Violet helped Catherine get back on her feet, much as Nathan had once helped her. She connected Catherine with a lawyer to file for divorce, helped her find work in town, and provided a safe place for her to heal. Watching Catherine slowly regain her confidence and strength reminded Violet of her own journey, and she felt grateful all over again for the life she had built. That Christmas, the whole family gathered at the ranch, James home from college with stories of city life, the twins chattering about everything and nothing, Daniel proudly showing off his latest rescued animal. Agnes joined them, as she did every year, along with Tom Sawyer and several of the ranch hands who had nowhere else to go. Catherine came too, shy at first but gradually relaxing as she experienced a holiday full of warmth and acceptance. As Violet looked around the crowded, noisy table, her heart overflowed with gratitude. This was what she had always dreamed of, a home full of love and laughter, children who felt safe and cherished, a husband who was her true partner in every way. The scared, broken woman who had fallen through the ice so many years ago felt like someone from another lifetime. After dinner, Nathan pulled her aside, a wrapped package in his hands. "I have something for you," he said. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with her initials. "I know you have been thinking about writing down your story," Nathan said, "for other women who might need to hear it, so I got you this, in case you want a place to start." Violet held the journal carefully, moved by his thoughtfulness. "It is perfect, thank you." That night, after everyone had gone to bed and the house was finally quiet, Violet sat at her desk and opened the journal. She thought for a long moment, then began to write. Pow! "My name is Violet Lancaster Irwin, and this is my story. It is a story about pain and fear, but also about courage and hope and love. It is a story about falling through thin ice and being pulled back to life by a cowboy with kind eyes and gentle hands. It is a story about learning to trust again, to love again, to believe in happy endings even when they seem impossible." She wrote late into the night, the words flowing from her pen like water. She wrote about Marcus and the years of suffering, about the desperate flight across the frozen river, about waking up in that cabin and seeing Nathan's face for the first time. She wrote about falling in love, about learning to be a wife and a mother, about building a life that felt like a miracle. When she finally set down her pen, the sky was beginning to lighten with dawn. Nathan appeared in the doorway, sleepy and rumpled. "You have been writing all night," he said, not quite a question. "I could not stop," Violet admitted. "There was so much I needed to say." Nathan crossed to her and kissed the top of her head. "I am proud of you. Your story needs to be told." "Our story," Violet corrected. "None of this would have happened without you." "We saved each other," Nathan said. "That is the real story." As the 1890s arrived, the Irwin family continued to thrive and evolve. James graduated from college and returned to the ranch, bringing with him new ideas about business and management that helped the operation grow even more successful. The twins both married within a year of each other, Emma to a banker from Sonora and Sarah to a fellow rancher from a neighboring county. Both stayed close by, and soon Violet and Nathan were grandparents, delighted by the arrival of Emma's daughter and then Sarah's twin sons. Daniel did indeed go off to study veterinary medicine, returning home 4 years later to set up a practice in Jamestown. He quickly became known as the best animal doctor in the region, with a gift for healing that seemed almost magical. Through all these changes, Nathan and Violet remained each other's constant. They grew older together gracefully, silver threading through their hair, laugh lines deepening around their eyes. They still worked side by side on the ranch, though James had taken over most of the day-to-day operations. They still sat on the porch together in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sun set over the mountains. They still loved each other with the same depth and intensity they had felt as newlyweds, if not more. On a warm summer evening in 1901, Violet and Nathan celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. The ranch was crowded with friends and family, 3 generations gathered to honor the couple at the center of it all. There was music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat, just like their wedding day so many years before. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, James stood up to give a toast. "I want to say something about my parents," he began. "Most of you know their story. You know how my father saved my mother's life when she fell through the ice, how they fell in love and built this ranch together, how they raised us kids and helped shape this community. But what you might not know is how they saved each other. My mother gave my father a family and a home. My father gave my mother safety and freedom. Together, they built something extraordinary. They showed all of us what real love looks like, patient and kind, and strong enough to weather any storm. So please join me in raising a glass to Nathan and Violet Irwin. May they have many more years of happiness together. There was not a dry eye in the house as everyone raised their glasses. Nathan pulled Violet close and kissed her to raucous applause and cheers. Later, when everyone had finally gone home and they were alone in their room, Violet stood at the window looking out at the ranch, at the land they had built their life upon. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "About that night on the river," Violet said, "about how close I came to dying, and about how that moment of terror led to all of this life, this family, this love. If someone had told me then that I would end up here, so happy and fulfilled, I never would have believed them." "Do you have any regrets?" Nathan asked quietly. Violet turned in his arms to face him. "Not a single one. Every moment of pain and struggle was worth it because it led me to you. You are the great love of my life, Nathan Irwin. You always have been, and you always will be." Nathan kissed her softly. "And you are mine. From the moment I pulled you from that river, my heart was yours. It will be yours until the day I die and beyond." They held each other in the darkness, two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. Outside, the ranch was quiet and peaceful under the stars. It was a good life, Violet thought, a very good life indeed. The years continued to pass, bringing with them more grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. The ranch passed primarily to James, though all the children maintained involvement in the family business. Nathan and Violet moved into a smaller house on the property, leaving the main house to James and his wife and growing family. They spent their later years traveling a bit, visiting their children and grandchildren, and enjoying the fruits of their labor. Violet published her memoir privately, and it was passed from woman to woman, offering hope and inspiration to those who needed it most. Nathan remained active on the ranch as long as his health allowed, always happiest when he was outdoors working with the horses he loved. One spring morning when Violet was 72 and Nathan was 73, they rode out together to the meadow where he had proposed so many years before. It was harder to ride now, their bodies not as spry as they once were, but they made the journey slowly and carefully. They spread a blanket under the same old oak tree and lay side by side, just as they had done as young lovers. The meadow was bursting with wildflowers, just as it had been all those years ago. "Do you remember what I said to you here?" Nathan asked, his voice a bit rougher with age but still full of warmth. "You said you loved me," Violet recalled. "You said you would love me until your last breath." "And I have," Nathan said. "Best decision I ever made, asking you to marry me." "Best decision I ever made was saying yes," Violet replied. They lay in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching clouds drift across the sky. This was what a life well lived looked like, Violet thought. Not perfect or free from pain, but full of love and meaning and purpose. She had survived the frozen river and built something extraordinary on the other side. Nathan and Violet lived to see their 76th and 75th birthdays respectively, surrounded always by the family they had created together. When Nathan finally passed away peacefully in his sleep one autumn night, Violet grieved deeply, but without regret. They had had nearly 40 wonderful years together, and she would carry his love with her for whatever time she had left. Violet lived 2 more years after Nathan's death, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, sharing stories and wisdom and love. She continued to help women who came to her seeking refuge, carrying on the work she and Nathan had done together for so many years. On a cold December evening, almost exactly 52 years after she had fallen through the ice, Violet passed away quietly in her sleep. Her children found her the next morning, peaceful and still, with a smile on her face, and Nathan's old coat draped over her like a blanket. They buried her next to Nathan on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. The entire town of Jamestown turned out for the funeral, along with dozens of women whose lives Violet had touched over the years. James gave the eulogy, speaking through tears about a mother who had survived the impossible and taught them all what it meant to be brave and kind and loving. "Our mother used to say that she fell through the ice, and our father pulled her out," James concluded. "But the truth is, They pulled each other out. They saved each other and built something beautiful together. That is their legacy to all of us, that love is worth fighting for, that courage can overcome any obstacle, and that even the darkest moments can lead to the brightest light. Thank you, Mama, for everything you taught us. We will carry your love with us always. The story of Violet Lancaster Irwin became legend in Jamestown, passed down through generations. They said she had been pulled from certain death by a cowboy with a good heart, and that together they had built not just a ranch, but a sanctuary, a place where love and safety were guaranteed to all who needed it. They said her spirit still watched over the ranch, blessing it with prosperity and peace. And on cold December nights, when the river froze over and the stars shone bright in the winter sky, people swore you could see two figures riding across the meadow hand in hand, forever young, forever in love, forever together. Because that is the thing about true love, the kind that endures beyond death and time. It never really ends. It just transforms, becoming part of the land and the air and the hearts of all those who come after, a reminder that even the coldest winter can lead to the warmest spring, and even the darkest moment can be the beginning of something beautiful.